What's going on, folks? This is Coach Marcus Pro Fan Talk coming to you Saturday morning. Got some things going on, but wanted to talk about some important topics going on. Uh, one of which is Tua Tagovailoa and his recent concussion. I've already did one video on this right after it happened, but having a little chance to let the situation breathe and looking at his situation and really looking at the media response and the social response that he's getting, it's a tough decision. I think McDaniels handled it perfectly, saying that he doesn't feel right speaking on what somebody else should do with their life and their career. And I agree 100%. But it is a tough decision, especially how in today's social media, everybody's quick to flip it and be the first ones to say, well, why didn't you say something? Looking at the Miami Dolphins, why didn't you do something? Because the Dolphins were almost on the hook for the first time he got concussed, and they let him go back in the game, and that was just uh, the systems that were in place weren't good enough, and for whatever reason, nobody used their eyes and saw the situation for what it is. So he went back in and got another concussion, and we all know how that ended up. But he had been relatively good for the past year. Everybody's saying the same thing. I don't know why he didn't slide on that play. You get into the game and you do weird things. I mean, that's the best way to put it. That's the best way I can describe it. As a running back, somebody that gets hit and gets knocked around every time you touch the ball. When you get into those situations, a lot of times it's not even fight or flight. It's about you trying to do what you can do to get that extra inch. I know that's a Al Pacino phrase from the movie, but there's some truth to that. There's definitely some truth to that. You've seen guys, running backs, almost every position, running backs, wide receivers, anybody that touches the ball. You've seen situations where they're trying to get that extra yard and they don't go down, and somebody has them on the bottoms and somebody has them on the top, and they get twisted around, tear a knee, strain something, pop something. Happens all the time. You saw what happened to Jordan Love. Jordan Love was still trying to make a play, got twisted around, and he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. But if he goes down, that play doesn't happen. But if he gets out of that, he might be able to make something happen. So that's the mindset of a player in the moment. And that's the one thing people need to remember. He should have did, woulda, coulda, shoulda, don't do nothing but rhyme. Because nobody knows what they're going to do in a situation. And especially from people that never played. I don't care if you're in the media or not. If you've never played and you've never been in that situation, then you need to sit this one out. Because you don't understand what people go through when they're in that moment. I like what Ryan Clark said and some of the other former players have said, because this is a situation. I'm not one to say that people in the media who did not play the sport at the highest level don't know what they're talking about. I don't believe that people that didn't play the sport can't be good coaches. But this is something where you need people with empathy that have been through to chime in on this conversation. They got to have empathy on this one. So if you're somebody just sitting behind a radio booth and never stepped on the field, not trying to hear from you. So I am trying to hear from Bart Scott and Ryan Clark and some of the others that have actually been on the football field, because their opinion matters, because everybody that's been on the football field has taken shots to the head. Everybody that's been on the football field has had some form of concussion in one way, shape, or form. It might not have been like Tua, where he had the flexed arm and you knew it was bad, but everybody's had something like that. Even when you get stingers, stingers are a form of concussion because your head goes to the side and you pinch those nerves over there. And then it goes all down your fingers, or you see spots, you get the tingling in your fingertips, all of that type of stuff. I didn't have a lot of concussions when I played ball, but I remember the ones that I did. I remember the ones that I did have. I still remember to this day, the first concussion I ever had was when I was 10 years old. I remember it vividly, how it happened, what play, what we did. I was 10 years old playing nose guard. First time playing football. You go in there, what do kids do? Duck their head. That's what kids do. Because you try to teach kids, see what you hit, keep your head up. But you're a kid. And me and this kid bumped helmets, and both of us fell back. I made the tackle or whatever, but that was the first time I ever remember, like, mentally hearing that gong in my head, hearing that sound. Is like hearing that sound, and that was the first time my fingertips ever tingled. I remember that very vividly. That was my first concussion when I was 10 years old. I had another bad one in high school where I didn't black out. I was still functioning, scored a touchdown, did not remember it. And I did not come out of that fog until halftime. And literally, it felt like someone had a black cloth over my head and they lifted up slowly and all the colors came back and somebody slowly but surely turned the volume up. That's exactly what it sounded like for me. And I didn't even realize I had scored. I didn't realize what happened until the day after when we went and watched film of the game. So had a couple bad ones in college, but, for the most part, nothing crazy. I was never out. I was never unconscious, never anything like that. But these things are pretty bad. And I was watching, looking at Bart Scott's comments. He was on ESPN and they were talking about it. And he made some good comments. And I just want to play this and make some comments on it. So hold tight. Let me run this back. Because he was talking about why he retired. Let me see if I. Oh.
If you ask some former players that have elements now that are dealing with ALS or cognitive skills or Tony Dorsett, what he's dealing with in his 50s,
running backs.
They'll say if you ask them they will do it all over again, a lot of them would say yes.
Yes, absolutely.
It's about what is Tua willing to risk, right?
Yep.
And that's an intimate conversation you have to have. Everybody think I retired because my toe, right? I had reconstructive surgery on my toe and I left. But really it's because I started seeing spots and lights. I had light sensitivity. I never really shared this with anybody, but I feel inclined to do this.
Now that's an interesting point. Number one, he's saying he's seen spots. I've seen that before. I don't have stuff like that regularly. But for me, and a lot of my friends that I've talked to that also played in the league, one of the things is my short-term memory is garbage. Just like I told you about the story when I was 10 years old. I'm 54. And I can tell you vividly what happened when I was 10 years old. But if I meet somebody at an event and I shake their hand, nice to meet you, 20 seconds later, I couldn't tell you their name to save my life. So I got to do constant reminders and write things down and things like that. And that's something that's common for a lot of guys that played in the league. Short-term memory, like he said, spots, a lot of different things. I'm lucky enough that I wasn't, never tore anything, never broke anything, never tore knees or anything like that. But there's a lot of guys that are a lot worse off. So let's let him continue.
Setting that we have, and I didn't know what to do, and I was like, you know what, it's time to fold it up. And it's about the people that's around Tua, right? Because it's hard for him not to make an emotional decision. That's why you put people around you, your team, that you trust with your life, and to make lifelong decisions. You give them the information, and then you come together, you make a collective decision, because it can't be a decision. And sometimes, I regret that I walked away. And sometimes
that's a good point.
You have to live with that. Leaving a game that you dedicated your entire life to is like a death. I tell people all the time, athletes have two jobs.
Absolutely.
You don't know what to do. You wake up the next day and you're 30 years old, you're 20 years old, and you don't know what you want to do with the rest of your life. And
absolutely.
Everything you've done has been defined by being a football player. It's not who you are, it's what you do, but all the laws and everything that we've learned and all the best qualities of us were learned on the football.
Absolutely, on the football field.
How to be accountable. Now you're not a part of that. It's the loneliest feeling in the world. I think both people.
Yeah. Good point by Bart Scott. There's a lot of mental issues that you have to deal with when you step away from the game. What's going on, Aussie Johnny? It's 12:24 a.m. in Australia. Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of mental stuff that you have to deal with that people don't really excuse me, that people don't really talk about. A lot of mental issues. I think I spoke about this when I was on Urban Fryer's show. That when you get out of football, for whatever reason, whether you walk away, whether you got cut and couldn't make another team, whether you get hurt. Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate you, bro. Um, there is a mental hurdle that you have to get over that a lot of people don't really see or understand. And Bart Scott said it perfectly. When you've been doing something that pretty much defines your life. Oh, that's such and such that played for the Eagles. Oh, that's such and such that played at Alabama. Or that's such and such, he's at that high school and they just won the state title, or they were ranked in the country. So your whole personality is defined by what you have done on the field. That's a real thing. And that is a mental hurdle that you have to get over. And a lot of times what me and Irvin had talked about was a lot of times we as players are wondering about what somebody else might be thinking of us. And in reality, it's in our own head. Now, with the situation with Tua, that's a little bit more intense because it is about his safety. It is about his long-term future. And Tua is in an interesting situation that not a lot of people find themselves in, even at the pro level, because he's somebody that if he never plays another down of football, his family is set. And there's a lot of guys in the league not necessarily like that. A lot of guys in the league like that. But him as a quarterback and the money he made and the contract he had, he's set. So that's another thing in his corner. But also, I'm telling you, the prospect of having to walk away from something you have been doing all of your life and you're very good at, not to mention, you have made it to the top 1% of your class. Anybody that makes it to an NFL camp, you in the top 1% of your class. Anybody that makes a team, you in like the top 0.5% of your class. Not to mention, those odds go up even more if you're a quarterback, a starting quarterback in the league, a franchise quarterback to get that type of money. So he's busted the odds. So my point is when you work so hard and you give everything you have to achieve a goal, and then somebody comes or a situation happens and you got to walk away from that, I don't care what the reason is. It is extremely difficult to just say, okay, I'm going to shut it down. It is extremely difficult for that. So that's why that specifically is why I have such a problem with other people in the media so quick to tell him what he needs to do, what he has to do. They're not necessarily wrong, and I know it comes from a good place, but man, that is a tough pill to swallow. And you got to give him his time because to Bart's point, this is like a death. And everybody knows you got to deal with those phases of death, denial and grief and all of that kind of stuff. You got to deal with those. Same way when you walking away from your sport, when you walking away from the thing that you have been doing all of your life and you have been striving to get to a point and you reach it. You've done something that not many people can say they have done. And then a situation pops up and you got to walk away from it. That's tough, man. That's tough. And I know Tua has got some big decisions going forward because he, I believe he is married. I'm not sure if he has kids or anything, but I know family is very important to him. Yeah, that was DeMar Hamlin. Yes, it was. Matter of fact, it was DeMar that made the hit. And if you looked at the hit, it wasn't a hard hit. He hit DeMar in the upper arm. So, hold on. We got it. Had to take that call from the wifey. But yeah, man, you gotta that's a tough pill to swallow. And I think he's gotta, he'll be in with his family, and they're gonna make the decision. And he's gonna do what he's gotta do. So props to the Dolphins organization and props to the former players that are keeping it real and letting people know how tough this decision is, man. So hope for the best.